now. Let's see. I think we should be live now. We are live.
All
Okay,
right.
good.
Well, welcome everybody to a kitchen sink live croscopy, or should we say a kitchen sink memoriam.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed away Tuesday, and I just flew back yesterday, not even 24 hours ago. Uh, so I'm surprised I'm upright. Um, but here I am in my old room from when I was a kid and cleaning up. Uh, it's a lot to clean up.
I can imagine. How are you holding up?
uh, Mostly okay. I was, he it fell, uh, died on the floor peacefully. They said the caregivers that found him. Um, and so when I arrived, there were a bunch of nickels like on the floor, and I was like, well, it's not like Dad was carrying money around the house, right? Like, what's this from? And then I saw, his cane must have fallen or something because the little rubber part that you put on the bottom of a cane that was lying on the ground too. And I picked that up, and there was a nickel inside it. I was like, oh, he was making the cane taller.
Oh.
And just at that moment, like Disturbed's version of Sound of Silence was on, and I just started crying out of nowhere. And like it was just something about like picturing my dad falling at that moment, and I don't know, like yeah, and like I grew up listening to Simon and Garfunkel records with Dad, and
Oh, geez.
Sound of Silence is like, oh yeah.
Mhm.
And of
That's
course, it's silent in the house, which is totally unusual because anyone who knows my dad knows that he was always telling a story.
yes, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, speaking of that, I figured what better tribute to my dad than telling a shit ton of stories and never shutting up until
Yep, yep.
a wife or girlfriend tells us we need to shut up, and then about an hour later we'll
Yeah,
finally quit.
that's the thing about your dad. Like, uh, I talked to him in various capacities. Like, when we were running the business together, and he would stop by and hang out sometimes. But there were times where I'd go over to where you are now to help him with something like computer related or whatever. There were a couple of things, and yeah, that was the thing. It's like he had a story for literally every situation, and like you'd be like, okay, well, I got to get going, and he would just continue with the stories and like build and build. I mean, it's kind of like how our show operates
Oh
too. Like
yeah,
we go from one thing to another. And
that was a human YouTube. Like
yeah, exactly.
you fall down this rabbit hole, like
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like yeah, man, he had so many stories though.
oh,
Like,
yeah, like I like I don't want it to sound like I was like annoyed by this or anything, but it was sometimes hard to tell them about what's going on in my life because I'd start telling the story about something that happened, and it would trigger a memory that was related. It's like you might like this related video, but in dad speak,
yeah, exactly.
and all of a sudden you're off on this tangent, and like 35 minutes later you're sitting there going, why are we talking about rabbits? What? Like what?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with the amount of stories that he would tell, like the most. um
mhm.
I don't know what like ranks as number one. But
The, like I think he might have told me the one the would you believe when he got pulled over.
yeah, if anyone is old enough to remember Get Smart, Even in reruns, that still makes you pretty old. Um, my dad did a pretty good impression of Maxwell Smart from the show. Don Adams, I think the actor's name was.
Think so, yeah.
I think he also voiced Inspector Gadget, right?
I believe so. Yep.
It was kind
They
of
were
based
kind of
on,
similar, in
yeah,
fact. In fact, I think Inspector Gadget was modeled after.
Get Smart. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, my dad was like uh driving, an old muscle car and was turning out of a parking lot and just kind of gunned it and peeled out, burned some rubber, and a cop happened to be driving right by at the time and pulled him over. And the cop walks up to the window and says, all pissed off, he's like, "Do you know how crazy you're driving and how fast you're going and how dangerous that is?" And dad was like, "Would you believe my foot slipped off the brake and hit the gas?" And he was like, "Well, I guess I can believe that, but don't do that again."
Well, and from what he told me is like there was there was more conversation to be had, and so he had to keep up that voice the whole time.
Yep, yep. Unlike my dad, I automatically truncate stories. So,
oh man,
and I believe it because I've had a few incidents with the police where I've said some funny shit that I didn't think I would ever work, and I got away with it. So,
yep.
That does happen.
I had something similar. Like, this was back in the '90s. I think me and a buddy were driving around listening to Cherry Pop and Daddies, and my car being a manual, I could like kind of like step on the gas pedal and get the car to kind of like bounce. And so I was bouncing the car and swerving side to side with the music. And it was late at night. There was like nobody out. So, we were just having a little bit of fun. Well, there was a cop. Like we came up to a light and there was a cop behind us. And my friend was like, "Oh, yeah, they're going to pull you over." And I'm like, "No, don't say that." And they did. And it was this lady cop, and she comes up and was like, what's going on there? What was happening?" I'm like, "Oh, well, my transmission's starting to fail and shifting. It kind of lurches a bunch, and so I'm working. I'm gonna get it fixed. Just I'm trying to get home." And so she believed the story. But and the thing is, like, similar to what your dad had, I had to, like, when pulling away from being pulled over, I had to kind of lurch the car a few times to make it believable.
Yep. Yeah, similar to that. My dad had another story about kind of giving a cop a BS story and getting away with it. He was like driving around with my mom in Ruston, of all places, and was looking for a party. So he was trying to see the addresses. So he turned off the headlights so his eyes would adjust to the dark a little bit, and he could see the house numbers better.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a Ruston cop pulls him over.
The one cop in Ruston,
right.
Mind you.
Yeah. Still, they're ever vigilant, or but this was in the 70s, back when you had to get out and walk up to the officer. Whereas now it's they want the higher ground. And so my dad was like, okay. He tells my mom, like, when you see me like come over and pound on the hood, reach over and turn on the lights. And he gets out and he's saying to the cop, like, "Oh, what's wrong?" He's like, "You're driving around with your headlights off." And he was like, "Oh man, I thought I had that fixed. Hang on a second." Bam! Like, headlights come on. He's like, "Okay, well, get that wiring fixed."
That's genius, man. That's some quick thinking too.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, I was looking through some pictures, and like my dad was kind of a smooth criminal sometimes.
Bit of a rebel.
Yeah. I remember this time we had a crack house next door in North Tacoma, which is like pretty chill, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's unusual for North
And
Dakota.
they had a bunch of birdhouses out front, and that was like their signal, I think.
Oh, weren't they? I remember that. Weren't they hiding drugs in the birdhouses?
I think so.
It was like the they would put things in the birdhouses and then somebody would come up and take it out and put money in or something like that.
What kind of honor system is that with drug addicts though? Like,
No, dealers. I think they were producing
oh,
things or
dealers.
something,
Yeah, yeah.
and dealers would come, and so it's like, well, if you obviously if you don't pay for something, they're never gonna sell to you again.
Right, right.
Um,
But
but
when they had moved in, they like, of course, wanted a lot of privacy, so they built this super tall fence along our property line that was like not within code whatsoever, and it was like there was like overhangs onto our property with like runoff and stuff, just like a bunch of water pouring over, and when it would rain, and my uh, I remembered this because I saw all these pictures that my dad took, and he like waited for them to leave and then hopped the fence and started taking all these pictures. And then he heard them coming back, and he like, hopped the fence again real quick. But on our side of the fence, like there was a little hill coming down, and he like rolled his ankle.
oh no.
But they didn't find him.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely good. Yeah, I do remember the birdhouse house. Like that was yeah, I mean it was like kind of on like right on the fairly main road, right? Like
And right next to an elementary school. And
yeah.
and once they well, pretty sure they robbed us, and then not too long after that they moved. um and we were driving around in South Tacoma one day, a little bit later, a few months later maybe, and we see a house with a shit ton of birdhouses out in front of it. It's like, okay, this can only be the crack dealers.
It's the same people, yeah.
And of course it was right across the street from another elementary school.
Man.
And so we went in and talked to the principal, and the birdhouses were not there. A while later, I think they had to pack up and move again. Probably got a little bit too much heat on.
Probably. Yeah. Man, that's funny.
It's shit like that that like I really admired about my dad at that age, because I was all into like Batman at the time, and that was such a Batman thing to do, right? Like
Oh
a
yeah.
regular guy fighting crime,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being ballsy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's definitely your dad.
Oh yeah. I mean, uh, talk about Batman shit. Like my dad was the only one sticking up for me at Catholic school when I would get picked on.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he did a good job of it, because he was like really buff at the time. He was benching like 500.
Jesus.
Um, and so he was big, intimidating, and whenever there was an issue that was just intractable for me, he would come in and take care of things. And I can remember one time in the sixth grade, like uh, they would like keep breaking into my locker and stealing my books, and I couldn't do my homework without my books,
Of course. Yeah.
and I got in trouble for not doing my homework because the books were stolen, and the teacher was like, well, that's not my problem, it's your problem.
Jeez.
And so my dad, hearing about that, came in like right after school. There was a few students left, because we would like rotate like sweeping up duty and stuff like that. So there was a few student witnesses to this. My dad comes in a sleeveless shirt, all buff, yelling and screaming at this teacher about, like, this is bullshit, like a kid gets their book stolen and you're doing nothing about it. And they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. And he's like, I'll show you what you can do. And he walks out into the hallway and just starts ripping the lockers open, like breaking locks, and so like Lou Ferrigno in the Incredible Hulk. He's just ripping all these lockers open. All these kids are in the hallway or like peeking out of the classrooms, like, what's going on here?
Oh, dude, and word probably got around very quickly
Oh
that, like,
yeah.
dude, this dude, the Hulk is coming down on you, man.
And he found the books. So like the teacher was all like, well, there's nothing we can do. And he just goes and like breaks into every other locker until he finds them.
Like, here they are.
Yeah. And so he hands me my books and I put them in my bag and we walk out and you know, it's a small hallway. So like we're walking down the hallway and it was just like the end of a Bruce Willis film. Like my dad's just got both arms out, like slamming the locker doors shut as he goes, like bam, bam, bam.
Oh man.
And the next day, man, I heard about it. They were like, your dad was like ripping lockers open. What is some kind of like monster? Like,
Oh my god. Yeah,
no
I never got to
wonder I still got picked on after that. Like,
I know. I never got to see that side of your dad. He was always like a pretty mellow person.
yeah, that happens with age. You know, you mellow out over time. But
Yeah.
you know, like, you know, his dad would beat the crap out of him all the time, and you know, he tried to break that chain. He hit me a few times.
Mhm.
Oh, at one time, he totally nuked me right across the chin, kind of a backhand into the back seat of the car because I was lipping off to my mom or something.
I was
Man,
gonna say.
that hurt like crazy though, and I was like crying for like an hour straight.
Hmm.
And and my dad like came in to apologize, and like I think that was like the first, maybe only time I've ever actually like seen him cry,
Mhm.
really cry. Like he felt super bad about that and never hit me again. Uh, you know, like, so, you know, it's it's not only like uh maturity with age and stuff, but there also has to be a little bit of a uh this willingness to break the cycle, but also like to know that that cycle exists and to have experienced it so that
Mhm.
you know it needs breaking. Whereas like, I don't know, back in the day, I think it was just accepted as normal. And then at some point, people started being like, you know what, that's not so normal.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in my dad's generation really had to be the ones to step up and make those big changes. And he did a good
Yeah.
job of that. So
Oh yeah, definitely. It's certainly hard to see that and
mm,
make that kind of change because it's so very easy to just follow the pattern, you know.
yeah. Um, and you know, I I had a temper in my younger years, and um, but I have never hit anyone. I've been in fights, but I've only been like attacked basically, and I would just, you know, do defensive maneuvers and stuff. Um, but I've never actually thrown a punch, and part of me feels like scared to. Uh, I feel I have enough anger to magnify my strength in those situations. That
Yeah.
if I
To do
don't,
more than is actually
yeah,
necessary.
yeah, I feel like if I don't hold back, it's going to get more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, you know, like you got to sit there and think, pick and choose the battles. Like, is this really worth it?
Yeah, exactly. And usually it's not. Just walking away is the better course of action. Although, like, me
Just
and my
walk away.
yeah, me and my friends back in the day, we used to like fight for fun, like kick the shit out of each other just for fun. I don't know why, but we did. We used to play football, but it was basically just tackling each other into the mud and stuff like that. We would pick days when it's rainy and just like tackle each other and stuff. I don't know. It was kind of crazy, but
Wow.
yeah, the only time I've been very few situations where I've resorted to violence. Um,
a
but
resort to
it's
violence.
it's always justified though. It's like I would never initiate that, especially now. It's like, okay, there's got to be a really good reason.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I would totally let loose on somebody if they were picking on my stepdaughter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's life and death, at least I know I've got that incredible Hulk in me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just more like Marvel Cinematic Universe Hulk, where I really have a good control of the temper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were showing me some of your dad's like ammo and stuff that he had. There's the little black box that you had there. Can you bring that
Oh
up
yeah,
really quick? Because I remember
it's
um
a caseless ammunition,
yeah, so
20,
your dad
22 caliber, I
it's
think.
22. Yeah, your dad gave me a box of that. And apparently long ago there was this little like pistol or rifle that was electronically fired, and those were the cartridges you'd stick in. um, and it would use like some kind of igniter to light that on fire. Is probably I would say more akin to like an air gun than like an actual gun. But it was a really novel thing, and I remember I was over there working on something, helping your dad fix something, and he gave me a box of that, which I still have. And actually, my air compressor he gave me.
Yep, I remember
Yep,
that.
yep.
That's come in
So,
handy quite a few
oh
times.
God, yeah, like having an air compressor, man, that's a game changer, honestly. But yeah, that came from your dad. I think in exchange for doing some computer something or other. Um, I know he was always trying to do things with the computer. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm on his computer right now, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And but yeah, the stories, man. Like he had so many stories. Like I kind of get the impression that he lived a little bit like Jamie Heineman, basically having done pretty much a little bit of everything.
Yeah, pretty much. And I I obviously became quite a bit like that myself,
Mhm.
being raised by him. Uh,
Yeah.
like uh, going into a bunch of different career fields and blah blah blah. Um, yeah, I and he was like, as he liked to say, the original Mr. Mom.
Hmm.
He stayed home and took care of me while my mom worked was basically the breadwinner. Like he would work in the evenings when my mom was home, so I they never had to do the daycare thing or hardly ever use a babysitter or drop me at the grandparents or whatever. But um, like that was pretty cool to have a buddy around all the time,
Yeah.
being raised as an only child and everything.
Well, and being adopted too, like
Yeah.
that, it, I'm sure it helped.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for his generation, that's a distinct change from the normal pattern.
Yep.
And I think that's beneficial too. Like that certainly helps having like a father figure who's present a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely lucked out, um, being adopted by my parents and getting the values that they instilled in me, and uh, having that kind of a role model that broke the gender barriers and stuff
Mm-hmm.
with regards to like who stays home with the kids and stuff,
Yeah.
who earns the most money, and it like never even phased him.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any like emasculated feelings or anything that he was
Well, no,
expressing.
not when your dad's the fucking Hulk.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. So like, and I think that's great, and it really has like shaped who I am and what this show is.
Mm-hmm.
really, because uh, so much of it is just like the essence of my dad, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
uh, like you had mentioned, uh, with his stories, there's like a story for every topic.
Yep.
We've got an episode for like every topic. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
right there you go. It's
Well, yeah, and I feel kind of bad that we didn't arrange we had this plan
yeah,
to do an episode where it was my dad for me and your dad for you doing an episode, and like because both my dad and your dad are big storytellers. That's like
yep.
the storytelling thing is like huge. My dad's the same way. He just has constantly all these stories and stuff.
Yeah, that
And
would have been so funny. Just like open the episode and act like nothing's different.
yep, yeah, exactly. That'd be
I'm
so
Casey
hilarious.
Rochefort, but he's all like 70,
Yeah.
like,
Oh my god. That'd be hilarious. Well, and that would have probably been a really interesting episode because, like, both of them would have gone back and forth on stories and fed off of each other, kind of like we do.
yeah,
Like that's. I, I think that's something that's so integral to both your dad's personality and my dad's personality is the whole storytelling thing and like
mm,
morphing the conversation from one thing to another. Um, and yeah, that's that's something that I, that's what I think of when I think of your dad is all
yeah,
the wild stories.
yeah. I remember at your mom's funeral when my dad and your dad and Joe's dad
Mm-hmm.
were all talking together,
Yeah.
and like you hardly ever see Joe's dad talk, but all of a sudden, like
Mm-hmm.
it's like a three-way story contest, you know, like
Exactly. Oh man. Yeah,
that was something else.
it was. Man. God.
Some kind of a space-time continuum tear there.
Yeah, I know.
Felt,
There is the theory of the Mobius. Oh man. Yeah. God. Yeah.
but you know, we've often mentioned that this show is a lot based on Sherry's uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the conversations that we would have there with our peers. But the Sherry's that we would all frequent was in the same parking lot as the grocery store that my dad worked at in the evenings.
Albertsons, right?
Yep. And so often when people would be coming or going from Sherry's, friends of mine, uh, my dad might be like getting to work or taking a break or just getting off of work or something and meet up with them in the parking lot and end up talking to them for like an hour. And I go to school the next day and people be like, "Oh man, I ran into your dad last night. And, man, I'm so tired because he kept me up so late, like telling stories."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. God. Will you have any like particularly I guess prominent or special stories about your dad? Speaking of stories,
Yeah.
other than the locker one, which I think is probably the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, there was a particular incident at Sherry's that my dad got involved in when I wasn't there. Uh, Pretty similar to the locker thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I was a bit of a punk teenager. Not
As
the
I'm
worst.
sure your dad probably was too.
Yeah, wasn't the worst, but you know, I did get into my fair share of calamity. And there was a point where we kind of got in trouble for something, and I copped up and said, "Yeah, yeah, I did that. You know, I'm gonna like take responsibility for it." But nobody else that was involved did, and they were trying really hard to maintain the lie to their parents, and so it created this situation where I was kind of all alone in my late teens, with just very few friends that uh, didn't side with the liars,
Mhm.
because like that was kind of like an eye-opening moment for me with a lot of people that like honor and integrity and like taking responsibility for your own actions took a back seat to like self-preservation for these people,
Mhm.
and loyalty to themselves more than this idea of, well, we even did an episode on like people tattletaling and ratting and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I think that, man, that was like season one. uh
Yeah.
but like, and of course people mature over the years, and I we've even had some of those people on the show actually. uh One person in particular. So I can get back onto track here and not go like that and get off onto some other story. Um, During that tumultuous time, I was at the gas station filling up my van, and this friend of ours that I knew was walking across the street, and he was coming with a guy I'd never seen before. And he was on the other side, let's say, at that time. Uh, and so I was, a little wary, but I walked in, I paid for my gas, and I come out, and they confront me at the door of the gas station. And uh, the guy I'd never seen before said, I forget what he said. It doesn't matter, but he took a swing at me, and I ducked it. And I went over toward my van. He was following me, and I just turned around and pulled out my knife. It was like a 5-inch blade. Actually, I think I have it around here somewhere. Um, anyway, I just found it.
Props for the story. Nice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they took off. But yep, yep, here it is. Yeah. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
You'd run from that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's not a knife.
Right. So so later that night, uh, I told my dad about it, and I went in to my dad's work and told him the story. And he was like, "What?" And he didn't even like clock out. He just walked right out of the store, across the parking lot, went into Sherry's, and called out like all those motherfuckers. And they all go outside. And I was kind of like staying back. I was like, I don't want them to think like I just sicked my dad on them. He's on his own, like he's doing his own thing. And I knew he could hold his own. So I was just like watching from a safe distance. And and a guy that we've had on the show said something to him that pissed him off. And he said something like, well, Casey shouldn't have been talking shit or something. And my dad just like looked over and grabbed him by the shirt and like lifted him up. It was like, oh god.
Oh man.
I wonder if he's watching now. Maybe he can tell the story from his perspective. That would be pretty funny. Ted, are you out there?
Oh man.
Yeah, so it took a while to live that one down, but eventually all those things flow under the bridge. And
Yeah, you bury the hatchet and realize it's like, we were young and stupid back then.
yeah, some people get in fist fights and then become great friends or go for
I
a beer.
I had a very good friend who became my friend after I beat the shit out of him. Um, for making fun of
You're
my
gonna be my friend, all right?
no. He was making fun of my friend, another friend of mine that was a little overweight, and he was making fun of his appearance. And my friend was crying, and I saw that, and I'm like, I can't let this continue.
Hmm.
Just like Data in the most toys, I think, right? where he grabs the Veron T disruptor and yeah, I'm like,
Just
there's it
beamed
comes.
out at the last minute. Oh, we had to turn the phaser off. It seems like you were firing it. He was like, "Oh, that's not possible."
Exactly. Oh man, yeah. God, man. Any other stories?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just want to highlight some of the other things about him that kind of shaped the evolution of the show. Um, my dad was like an amazing singer. Uh, he was a tenor. He did like the lead singing at the church that we went to and stuff. And growing up, I never sang. I was like too shy, intimidated by how good he was and stuff.
Hmm.
But I would listen, and he would talk to me about music theory, and he majored in music and stuff. Um, and he would tell me all these like vocal techniques and stuff. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I started to, you know, write music with you. And then I was like, well, I'll try to put some vocals on this. And started a little rough, but then I started coming into my own okay with it. And
Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, that your fairly early song, Aureolus, like it still gives me chills. It's beautiful. I
well,
love that song. It's
glad we can't play it at the end because we're
uh, oh yeah, yeah. Can't we don't have the console to do live stuff.
yeah.
But but
But
yeah.
yeah, like the love for music. Um, one of the hard things earlier today was going through all this stuff and finding just like stacks and stacks of sheet music that my dad had, and like knowing how much that meant to him. It's like, oh man, I don't know about like getting rid of this, but I can only bring so many things back to Germany with me and stuff. So I'll probably
Well,
kind of select a few, you know, uh, special ones, perhaps.
that's a good idea. Well,
Or
yeah, and I hope that things go to a good home,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, and I definitely want to like disseminate a few things to people, and like my dad's guns and stuff. My uncle, his brother, really loves guns, and they used to. Well, we all used to go shooting together and stuff, and
Mhm.
uh, legally, it's pretty easy, I think, to transfer guns to an immediate family member. So
Yeah, you
that,
don't need any paperwork for that.
that'll be far less complicated than bringing a gun to Germany. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
exactly. Except for like I know your dad has at least one black powder gun. Those are not classified as firearms, so those you can just like you can actually order one through the mail in the US. It's not
really
that big. Yeah. Yeah.
classified in the U.S.
In the US, yeah. I don't know other
Yeah, like
countries may have similar classifications. They're not really in the same, well, I guess legally they're not considered firearms. So it's like you can just hand it over to somebody or ship it to somebody and receive it in the mail. There's no paperwork needed.
uh,
Um, but anything that's cartridge based, that's
uh,
where it's different. But immediate family members, yeah, you don't need to do any paperwork. You can just say, "Here you go."
yeah,
Yeah. Which
yeah,
I mean, kind of makes sense.
yeah, and there's a lot to go through. Yeah, a lot of memories that are going to be coming
Oh,
to the surface, and more and
yeah,
more stories that I'll be reminded of. Uh,
it's hard.
I can just look around this room and come up with a bunch of stories. I have a Batman Returns movie poster on the wall here, and I I can't remember exactly how we got that, but it was, I think we like asked the theater for it or something like. And my dad really helped me like find a lot of these cool Batman collectibles and stuff.
Hmm.
I got all these like Star Trek collectibles up over here too, and I have, well, might as well bring it down and show this one too. That's a Doc.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, those. Oh, I love that knife. Even though it's like practically not that useful, but it just looks cool.
I mean,
Like,
this one's a real one. I have an aircraft aluminum mechlith that's totally worthless in battle, but like this, you could actually kill a motherfucker with.
oh, you could, but the little side things. It's like it's more of
Right.
a
Yeah.
like a gimmick to terrify somebody because like you pull out a knife and then more knives come out of that knife. That's a very Klingon thing.
Yeah. But had that up on display here on this shelf. And I used to have a chair sitting right here, and I was sitting doing my homework one day when I was like in community college, and all of a sudden, like I hear this, the house kind of starting to shake, and I was like, "Oh man, is my dad pissed off about something again? I better go see what's going on." See, turning into the Hulk again. I walk out, and he's like asleep on the couch, and I was like, "Oh, it's an earthquake." And not like a totally bad one, but I come back into my room, and the Klingon knife had plunged into the seat right where I was sitting. It was
Oh,
just
geez.
standing up like this, and I was like, "Oh, well, good thing I stood up."
I guess so. Jesus, man. Oh my God.
Secure dangerous weapons in the event of an earthquake.
Yes, maybe don't have the blades, yeah, bladed things above your head on the walls.
And of course, I just put it right back up there for 25 years.
Then sat back down in the chair and got back to work. Oh man.
But there's no chair over there now, so
Yeah.
I,
So,
I
so
changed at least one thing.
I see the Star Trek poster behind you though. Like, was your dad into Star Trek?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He introduced me to that. I remember I remember we were over visiting his childhood best friend the night of the premiere of Star Trek: The Next Generation. We were
Oh
watching
wow.
on TV. It's like one of those things like you remember where you were and what you were doing
Yep.
for some reason. Like
I remember too. Yeah, because that was at Encounter at Farpoint, right? The first one. Um, I was at my friend Chad's house, and we used to watch the original series all the time, and then it's like, oh, this new one's coming out, and I remember being at his house and seeing all the newness and stuff, and wow, this is so much better than the old one. Like, yeah,
it's
oh,
funny going back to watch the first season now, and it's like, oh,
it it's pretty
what a run.
substandard, yeah. Like it's almost very TOS like in a way.
Yeah.
But like I remember the like the saucer separation too.
Mhm.
That was like a huge, I was sitting in my friend's living room and like I remember that. Like
Oh yeah.
that's
A shame they didn't do more with that throughout the show.
yeah, I mean that's kind of weird that was such a kind of touted as a big deal and they hardly ever used it, even though there
Yeah.
were kind of a lot of situations they got into where that would have been a good idea, because like most of the people live in the saucer. Like maybe they should bugger off in that and let the remainder of the Enterprise deal with the Borg or something,
Yeah. I love how it had a battle bridge.
Yep.
It's all like dark and tiny and like
Yeah,
crap.
exactly. Oh, that was another one they hardly ever used too.
Mm-hmm.
The battle bridge. Yeah, man. Oh,
Yeah, so he definitely like got me into Star Trek quite a bit. Um, our frequent guest Randy was a friend of mine in middle school, and he was also very much into Star Trek. So we kind of geeked out on that together, and we would come over here, and my dad would help us make like Star Trek parody movies and stuff.
I think I've seen one of those.
Yeah, I think we only actually made one, but we would do a lot of that make believe play stuff. all the time.
It's
And
really cool to have a dad that's like into the same stuff and
yeah.
like essentially play at the same time.
Oh yeah, my dad loved video games. Like to the day he died, he was always playing video games. Like uh he was more into it than I ever was. Like I remember coming home from school and he'd be like, I beat the Legend of Zelda today, like start to finish in the time you were at school. I was like, what?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive. I think it took me like I gave up trying to beat it when I was a kid, and only as an adult did I end up beating it.
Oh wow.
Like I played and played and played and could not be like I just got super frustrated by the time you get to like the like the seventh dungeon. It's like, oh my god, you're throwing the controller and
I can't
stuff
remember
like
if
that.
it was the first Legend of Zelda or the first one that was on the Super Nintendo. I think it was the Super Nintendo. Up in the
Okay.
northeast corner of the map, you could like walk off the screen and like you couldn't see Link anymore, but you could like go up and like walk all the way over like here on the map and then like walk like phase back into the map on this little island to get like a treasure chest or something. There's just
Nice.
like a stupid heart, I think. Like,
Hmm.
but I thought that was really cool, and we discovered that by accident together. And
Man,
yeah, a lot of
my
good memories playing games with dad.
it is different for people of that generation to be into video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, like I have friends that have kids, and my friends play the same games that their kids play, like together sometimes.
Yeah.
And that was unheard of. Like my dad, like I remember we had a Nintendo, and my dad, he's like, oh, whatever, you didn't, salty marine and stuff, and wasn't into video games. But like, um, I remember coming home from school one day, and my dad's sitting in the little side room where we had our TV and a couch and stuff, and he's in there, and he's got the controller in his hand, and he's playing Super Mario Brothers, and he's like, he's like super into it, like, oh, so you do like NES after
Right.
all.
He was like a closet video game player.
Yeah, exactly. uh,
I play video games with my stepdaughter and I love it. Like,
mm-hmm,
I'm not like good at them necessarily anymore
mm-hmm.
because times have changed and they're a little more advanced these days. But it's always a good time and there's always laughter and anytime you find a chance to capture laughter, it's worth every minute spent on it. So
Well, and you had to be present with your kids, which it
yeah.
sounds like your dad definitely was very
Oh yeah.
present
Oh yeah.
and involved and helped mold you into the person you are today.
Yep. Getting a little teary eyed.
Yeah, I've kind of been on the edge of that myself. So yeah.
Yeah, like I see all these like games sitting here and his game systems out in the living room are all hooked up. And, yeah, his brother went out and bought him like I guess Nintendo is now like selling like new versions of the Super Nintendo because the old ones like over time just stopped working.
Yeah, there's one for the NES and the SNES
Yeah.
too.
And it's
Yeah.
like full size and looks exactly the same and everything. There's
Mm.
a few like games where Game Genie won't work with it, but other than that, it's like indistinguishable.
Yep.
And that was like the highlight of his final days. I think like
Mm-hmm.
jumping back into these old games that he would spend countless hours playing.
Mm-hmm.
And back then my mom would be like, stop playing video games. and, and I think now because mom's in a retirement home and currently on hospice, so probably have another tribute not too far in the future, unfortunately.
Ugh.
Um,
Oh God.
but now that he didn't have anyone telling him not to play video games, I think that was probably like a, like this
That's what he
relieving
did.
feeling. Like I could just play video games all the time.
Every waking hour, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And I mean it's good that he got a chance to kind of like relive that that point in his life.
And I mean, that's what he wanted, like doing that and eating like shit. I tried to fight against stuff like that. I was like, you should try to get a little exercise. You just had a heart attack, maybe like some light exercise. I'm gonna buy you like good food and stuff. And he would just like let it rot in the fridge and like never touch it. And he just wanted to go for the junk food and stuff. And at one point, like, um, I mean, I guess I should explain a little bit about why I didn't feel all that bad about moving to Germany. With um, there's a knock at the door. Um,
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Perhaps we could take a little pause.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. We may just have to keep the stream going, but
Yeah,
if you're watching, we'll be right back.
yeah.
Maybe a pee break is in order. Be right back myself.
Second, so my guest that came to the door was my dad's caregiver, and I'm going to give her a card so that she can watch the show with all of you fine people. I'll be right back.
Not back yet. Okay, well, yeah, interruptions. It happens. Yes, sirree. Here we are. Just me by myself, sitting here, live streaming. Just sitting here. Casey should be back soon, I think. I hope. Hmm. Well, well, well. is where it'd be nice to have some kind of a control console to throw in some kind of other video while we wait. Here's some sounds. You out there, Casey? Should be back soon. Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Huh.
So I briefly came in here to grab one of our business cards and already explained this to the viewers, but that was my dad's caregiver, the one that found him.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wanted to check on me and offer condolences and all that stuff. So I didn't shoo her away too quickly. So my apologies for stepping away a few minutes.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. That's very considerate.
But I mean, like, what timing, right? Like, I was like, well, actually, at the moment, we're talking about dad's stories right now. Like, she was saying, yeah, he loved to tell stories. And so I gave her a card so that she could look up the show and maybe watch the end of the live stream.
Nice, nice.
Where were we?
I can't remember. We talked about Star Trek, and then I don't know. Whatever.
Not like there's any shortage of stories to.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like remember when we ran the business and every now and then my dad would look after the shop when we were both out on site.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
almost forgot about that.
Yeah, I think he was pretty proud of that accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when we closed up shop when you were going to go off for college and stuff like that, and he walked around and did like a video recording of the interior of the place.
See if I can find that.
Yeah. Well, and I know he was also really supportive of the music that we put together.
Yeah.
Like one of the few people that actually bought an album and stuff.
Right. Which we're working on a 20th anniversary re-release of.
Yes.
Which is,
at least of the second album that we did.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be nice to make a vinyl out of that, but that's a financial commitment, shall we say?
Yeah, yeah. And I've been taking a little liberty in like lengthening a couple of the songs since they're not constrained by the time of a CD anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
In this era of streaming music.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, maybe our concept album be
yeah,
a good one to do when we finally get around to that. It's a little hard to collaborate musically across the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little hiccup there, but still yeah, music was definitely like a thing that my dad instilled in me, this appreciation for the math in music and the emotion in music, the technique, all of that stuff, all the flair and flourish and all that stuff that I try to sprinkle in there. A lot of that was stuff I learned from talking to my dad about music theory and listening to Beethoven and Queen and like this wide array of stuff. Like I remember him telling me, we were like in my mom's room, and where the record player was, and we were playing some Beethoven. Just had the lights off and just laying on the bed, just chilling, listening to music. And he was telling me, like, like Beethoven was the original heavy metal. And
Yeah.
we were listening to like the Ninth Symphony or something. And
Mhm.
and I was like, yeah, I guess I could see that. Like it's pretty heavy, and then I started thinking about music in terms of like, what kind of characteristics define music, and how flexible is that, like most
Mhm.
people wouldn't think heavy metal when they think Beethoven, but
But
if
that
you
is,
listen to it in that vein, like you can see it.
in fact, a lot of metal artists uh, have a lot of influence from classical music.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, I think I was reading something somewhere fairly recently that was saying like, uh, when you think of classical music, you think of music being kind of slow paced, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's a modern interpretation of that music. It used to be extremely fast paced. Like it was a lot faster than what you hear nowadays back then.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so I mean, it kind of does fit for sure.
Yeah. And like the structure of popular music today, I think kind of stems from symphonies, concertos, and like all these things. They were defined by the way they were structured, the
Mm-hmm.
tempo changes, and the overall mood in whichever movement you were in. um
Yeah.
and that was a huge influence on my writing too, is that change in mood. Like I loved that in classical music, how you could have this like dark and brooding sound, and then it comes into this like mellifluous, like total beautiful melody, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's still tied together, like
Yep. I love those transitions like that.
yeah.
Uh, I wonder if you'd even be doing music, like writing, creating your own music, doing your own vocals, if it weren't for your dad's influence.
Not at all. I don't think so. No, definitely not. Like uh oh, here's a great story. um it's more my story, but based on my dad. When my dad was the lead singer of the church, they had this loft in the back of the church where the choir was, and uh, I have a lot of fond memories of going up there with him rather than being down in the pews where it was all boring. To be up there and see my dad being the rock star at the church. Only not really. It was a Catholic church, not a Christian church, where they actually do kind of rock sometimes.
Yep. Yeah.
There was no rocking in the Catholic Church.
No,
Um,
be solemn.
yeah,
Grim up, everybody.
but I was so into music because of him, and I would, and I had a piano in my room, and I would always like, I taught myself to play by ear, and with his help, of course. Um, and he also taught himself how to play by ear. Uh, I would actually get to the point as a kid where I knew what a note sounded like in my head, like
Mm-hmm.
like the pitch exactly where it should be, and whatnot, and also had a little bit of knowledge of chord structure and so on. So I would be sitting there with blank sheet music while my dad was singing, and I would just be like writing down notes, and coming up with songs in my head, in between the songs that the choir was doing. And I ended up writing like a whole concerto. It was probably crap. I mean, like for a 9-year old to like write a concerto. I mean, like, I'm not saying I'm up there with Mozart, but up there with Mozart. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm
Probably
wondering.
better than Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I mean, come on.
Yeah, probably. Did, are there recordings of your dad singing? Because I think that would be a great thing. Because obviously we can't put stuff in live, but
Yeah,
once this is finally.
I do want to re-release this and edit it a little bit and kind of throw in some of that stuff once I come across it because there are some recordings that he did.
Maybe some photos too at the same
Yeah,
time, like some singing and photos. And that
yeah,
would be an awesome thing.
yeah, yeah. So my dad was uh, one of the probably one of the first people to do this too at their wedding. Um, he sang while my mom was walking down the aisle. Like he's up at the
Oh,
front of the church with no microphone, and my aunt was playing the organ, but um, there was let's say an acoustic uh, problem they couldn't get around where there was latency from the back
mhm.
of the church to where he was. They couldn't sync up uh, quite right. So he just said, well, nix the organ then. And he just sang a cappella while my mom walked down the aisle.
Oh, wow.
And so for my parents' 50th anniversary last December, uh, I put together a party um, and I played for them a recording of that very song that I made uh,
Hmm.
on like a karaoke app, and that felt like a special moment, at least for me.
I'm sure it was for them too.
Yeah, I mean, like they're both not like the type to talk about that kind of stuff. That's stuff that is uh, unique to me in this family. Let's say,
Mhm.
because not everything you get from your parents. Well, I mean, like I'm adopted, so of course, not everything you get from both
Sure.
parents, right?
Makes
Like,
sense. Yeah.
nature and nurture,
Yep.
it's not one or the other. So,
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
but like that, I'm really glad I got to be able to do that. And I don't know what we're doing about a funeral yet. It's still early because I just flew in yesterday. But if I can do it without totally crying through the whole thing, I might try to do one or two of the songs that
Mm.
he always did there. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Might be hard.
Yeah, yeah, might be.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
I mean,
Oh.
like that's people like Eric Clapton, Tears in Heaven,
Hmm.
a song he wrote when his baby son died. Like, how does he perform that? Like,
I don't know. You got to be in like a very particular headspace because I mean, it would be a tearjerker.
yeah, totally. I mean, you rehearse it enough, I guess you kind of desensitize yourself to it a little bit, but uh still, it's gotta like if you're the one that wrote it, it's got to
Yeah,
conjure that memory every single time.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Uh, I've certainly got songs that I wrote about a situation, and every time I listen to it, makes me think a little bit about that.
Same here. Yeah. I mean, even decades on,
Uh,
it's like even songs that are just music, no vocals, no nothing. It's just a tune.
yep.
Like completely transport me back in time to that particular time and those feelings.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Well, that song I did 20 years ago, Twisted Fate,
Hmm.
sounding all kind of upbeat and happy. It was actually about my divorce.
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
no lyrics to it, but it was I came home when we were roommates. I came back to our place at night in April 11th, I think it was. And I just sat down. I wrote it on your computer, actually. I remember
Mm.
that. And there's a funny story with that too. I wrote it on your computer, and like the what I was feeling in that moment was like, you know, of course I had all this despair for like going through a divorce, but it was like the moment I finally felt good despite it. You know, like I was finally like starting to come out of it, or like, you know, come to terms with it. And I think something had happened, like she had already moved on or something, and I found out about that, and I had this like weird like good feeling out of nowhere, and that's where that song came from.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, such a like upbeat, you know, catchy beat that I was like bouncing my foot to it, and your computer fell over and was like bam, and just like shut off, and I was like, whoops.
Oh
You
no.
remember that?
Yep. Oh man, good times. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good song.
On the next VH1 behind the music.
Mhm. Yep. Oh man. God. Yeah, those good times.
Yeah, like even if like nobody listens to our music, it's really nice to be able to listen to it ourselves. And
Hmm.
you know, like it's like a diary, you know.
It is.
You ever
It
go
totally
back and
is.
read your diary? Yeah, like
Yeah.
probably you do
I,
sometimes.
I
And
exactly. In fact, frequently I go back through my old catalog and listen to songs and look at the dates when I created them and stuff and remember what was going on at the time because it is like there's a really good scene in the movie Immortal Beloved, um, talking about that very thing. It's like, you know, there's more. This is more than just a song. This is telling a story of an event that happened through music,
yeah,
and that it's like encapsulated in there. Um, and yeah, like, well, when we were roommates too, it's like, well, and even before and after, we would go to like Bertolino's and get some nuclear tea, um, and trade songs. And I remember that time was so great because it was like I had a song and I'd share that with you, and you would be inspired to create something, and you'd create something, and I'd hear your thing, and that would inspire me to create something.
oh
And
yeah,
like we were constantly stacking up, like getting better and better and creating more and more stuff, being inspired by each other's works.
oh yeah. There's
And
so many songs written in 2003.
oh yeah, geez, like that is if you were to like that would be the tip of the bell curve, I guess, in
Yeah,
terms of our musical production.
right, right.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's too bad my dad didn't really like make his own stuff so much. That would have been kind of cool. Like then I could like cover it or something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
because he mostly performed pre-existing things, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like
Oop.
church music and stuff. But
Okay.
uh,
You know, man, that would have been so cool if we could have created a song and have him do the vocals for it.
yeah,
Man, damn it.
I mean, in his later years, he had a lot of health problems that made it so he hasn't been able to sing for a couple decades. But
Hmm.
so you know, we never really would have had that opportunity so much. But
True.
uh, it would have been cool if it had been possible. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well,
I've had
especially
that thought plenty of times.
I know. Well, when we first started, I think he would still be capable of doing some vocal tracks.
Yeah,
And that was the time where both you and I were incredibly shy about
yeah.
doing vocals. So it's like, well, hey, it's the perfect marriage right there,
Well,
you know?
you know what I can do though is the whole posthumous collaboration thing when I when I find these recordings that he made, I could harmonize over them, you know.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? So here's the thing. We talk a lot on this show about AI. It would be possible to use AI to basically figure out his vocal capabilities and sounds and write lyrics for a song and have him sing that song.
Huh.
Like, because especially if you have enough of a catalog of his
Yeah,
sentence.
I don't know that there would be enough. I think that might be like three or so songs.
Oh yeah.
Actually, like put the work into recording. You know, like he plugged in the keyboard that we have, and you know, it had like a 4-track recording
Mm-hmm.
capability, and so he played like all the parts and built this uh, recording on it, and this boombox right over here. It's seen better days, but back in the day, it was actually pretty good for. That's why I wrote "You'll Never" on.
Mm.
He used that to record it much in the way that I did "You'll Never." So I'll have to master the recording when I do find it. It's not the greatest, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I can do it.
God, yeah, I remember. I remember you'll never. Didn't you use like the left track for vocals and the right track for everything else?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened actually, but it did, and
It was a good song, though.
yeah, like and yeah, that was the first song I ever did vocals for, I think. And it was right here in this room that I first recorded that. Uh,
Wow. Yeah.
interesting. A little bit of history there.
Well, maybe you should just like as a final tribute record something there,
Yeah,
some kind of song.
that would be cool. I don't know how because I don't have my digital audio workstation here with me, but
Well, but do it old school like you did back in the day, when
yeah.
your dad lived in that house there.
Even then, I had Mod Plug.
That's true. Yep.
That
Mhm.
actually run on that old ass computer.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yes.
we had such bad luck with computers at first, you know, like we had like the old DX 486 or whatever,
Hmm.
and and then the first Pentium when that came out,
Yep.
and
Well,
I
I remember you when you were living where you're at right now. You would like send me a track through a modem, like direct connection, no internet. Like we would connect on my computer at work, and you would send me files, and then I'd render them and then burn it to CD back when like a CD burner cost like $1,600. Um,
damn, yeah, because I had it's still sitting here actually, and this is a fucking dinosaur. This Pioneer like standalone CD burner that you could hook up to a tape
oh,
player,
mm-hmm.
uh, and that's all I had to burn stuff with. Yeah, I couldn't really hook it up to a computer, or at least I didn't have the know-how or the cables to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I would have to send it over the phone to you. You'd burn it off your computer and then drive it over to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd put it in this shitty ass boombox here and plug the mic in and record the vocals onto a cassette tape.
Yep.
And then burn that cassette tape onto a CD with this home CD burner here.
Mm-hmm.
And then take that CD and put it back in the boombox and record the backing vocals onto a cassette tape and then burn that.
Mm-hmm.
So it went through the phone and then like two iterations of cassette tapes before the final version, which sounded like utter crap.
Yep. Kids today don't know how good they have it.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could do all that. Well, I mean, you could do all that on this thing and
Oh,
then some. Um, Like I wish I had one of those back then. Good Lord.
Right.
Man. Jeez.
Yeah,
Oof.
indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Did we both sigh at the same time?
Yeah,
Oh man.
it's
It's so weird that like it I mean it doesn't feel like it's that long ago that my mom passed away and your dad and your mom showed up to the funeral and like now it's his funeral essentially.
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's been a I gotta say, it's been a crazy, stressful 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's been getting easier, and I mean, like, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but it's going to be easier now because, like, you know, my dad was on hospice for a while because they were like, "You're never gonna live to see 2023," and of course, like, when you tell someone that, like, they steeply decline in their health, and,
Yeah.
and it was like there was a long time where it was really just like, oh geez, am I gonna come over and find him, slumped over in his chair? And I would, but he was just like passed out or something, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, fuck, and like over and over again, thinking you just found him dead, and then realizing no, actually not. Um, and and then couple that with like, I was trying so hard to. I think I started talking about this earlier. Maybe this is where we got interrupted, because I was
Oh, healthy
talking about
eating.
moving to Germany and stuff. Yeah, like he just wanted to eat like crap, and I was trying so hard to get him all this good food and low salt, and I cooked for him at my apartment and brought it over, with like no salt whatsoever. And it was actually pretty good stuff. And he really liked it, but it was like I couldn't keep up with that kind of, uh, I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, yeah, he was there for me when I had cancer, did the whole 24/7 caregiver thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was through that in a few months. And
Yeah.
and I was for years battling, trying to like improve his health. And it was like, why am I even trying to push this boulder up a hill? Why not just let him be happy and do what he wants and die how he wants? Like he didn't,
There's something to be said for that, like dying on your own terms.
yeah,
And
he didn't want to be in a hospital. He didn't want to be in a nursing home. He wanted to
Mhm.
be right here, eat whatever he wanted, play his video games. So that's what I gave him.
I,
But
yeah.
like I also happened to like meet someone that I fell in love with, and that just happened to be somebody in Germany. And that like I had a real shitty like 3 years, and I was just like, you know what, like I feel happy right now. I need to like pursue this. And you know what, he never ever said anything like, oh, please don't go or something. Like, he said he would miss me and stuff, of course, but
Mhm.
uh, which is of course hard to hear. And like I always do feel like a little bit of this guilt, like, I wasn't there when he died alone, blah blah blah. But like, you can beat yourself up all your life over shit like that, and
Mhm.
that could happen even if I lived right down the street, or even if I lived here and
Yeah.
at
Yeah. You're
work.
right.
Like, so there's no point in thinking that way, right?
No.
As much as we're inclined to, as especially somebody who was raised Catholic, the guilt is like the default setting, right?
Exactly.
Like, I should feel guilty. How can I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, and it's like you could see things coming, much like when my mom died. It's like I knew this was coming.
yeah,
It wasn't a big surprise. And for your dad, it's like he was able to have a little bit of time to live the way he wanted, to kind of be on his own and play video games and eat whatever. And like, hey, what more can you ask for? Like that's a good life.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I think prior to that, like he had a pretty good life.
Oh, for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, he had a pretty strong bout of depression right when my mom got cancer, or discovered that she had cancer, because it was
Mm-hmm.
stage 4 by then. So it's not
Yeah.
like one day she woke up with stage 4 cancer, right?
Yeah.
But that whole situation was so hard on him, and like he's super romantic. He was super romantic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got that from him too. In fact,
Probably.
like looking through stuff, I found an old love letter he sent my mom, like right when they met. It was so cute. Uh, and and even like he never pushed this on me, but I grew up this way, and kind of eventually came over this hurdle. But in the end of the letter, he was like telling my mom like what he loved about her, and he was like, and you don't smoke pot like the others do. And I was like, that's so funny, because I was all like anti-pot when I was young too. Like
Oh man, that's funny.
yeah,
God.
it's amazing the amount of like uh uh I don't know, like I was adopted, right? But like so similar to my parents in certain,
Subtle influences,
yeah.
essentially.
And I mean, like growing up, I even kind of thought like, I kind of look like them a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
not like a whole lot, but
There could,
like
there I'm not, well, okay, maybe I am a little bit into the woo stuff, but I think there's a reason for that. That the cosmos connects people together somehow, some way. And that like it was fate that you ended up being adopted by your parents, your adopted parents. I don't think it was just like, oh, they just kind of rolled the dice and we'll take that one.
yeah.
Like I think there was some cosmic something going on
Well,
behind the scenes.
and I was lucky, so lucky that they were supportive of me. Well, first off, they never ever hid it from me. Like
Mm.
people are like, when did they tell you you were adopted? I was like, I mean, like always.
Yeah.
I don't have this memory of like being like, oh shit, what, I was adopted? Like I just knew it before it was even like, I knew it was like a different thing, right?
and,
So
and that's, I think, the right way to do it
the way
too.
it was, yeah. So that was like zero trauma, like
Mm-hmm.
like 100% cool. Uh, and
Yeah.
some people do it differently, and it's like, bro, don't don't like,
No.
yeah, you I'm gonna call it a lie, even though like that's arguable, but like eventually a lie is gonna come out, and then you got all that mess to clean up, right?
Like Santa or the Tooth Fairy or something
Yeah,
like that, but
right.
bigger.
Yeah, much bigger, much bigger.
Yeah,
Santa, you can be like, well, yeah, it doesn't really matter because you're still getting presents, right, kid?
exactly. Christmas still happens.
Yep.
Hmm.
But I was so lucky that they not only were open about me being adopted, but they were never discouraging me from having this innate, uh, I don't know, like magnetic draw to solve the mystery of who my parents were. Like
Huh.
I've always been like, oh, there's a mystery, I must solve it. Like I've always
And
had
that,
that in me, and
that goes to Star Trek, The Next Generation. What was the one with the
that one episode where they lost their memories or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and they had to do it all over again
Yep.
because they discovered a planet they weren't supposed to discover.
that weird alien first officer and everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Um,
that's right.
but yeah, like so they kind of would encourage my imagination. I got into Sherlock Holmes and Scooby Doo because they were detectives,
Hmm.
and and I would read and Sherlock Holmes in particular. I I swear, if you're gonna have required reading in schools, make it Sherlock Holmes because that is the collection of stories that instills critical thinking in you.
I have a whole like
Yeah.
bound book of all of those stories,
Oh yeah.
and
I
yeah, I
went
love them too.
I
And
read them all, but I went back in high school and read the entire works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle front to back
mhm.
all at once. Like just like in a matter of months or something, like I digested the whole thing and I was like immediately thinking differently from that point on. Like it was
Yeah.
noticeable. I was like,
Well, and wasn't like Batman, right? Didn't Batman get its
Batman too.
start in Detective Comics?
Yep, yep. The world's
So
greatest
that,
detective. Yeah,
yeah.
I was all into Batman too. Yep.
Hmm.
And my dad loved to tell this one story about me. Uh, he told it to me the day I graduated from college with my bachelor's in biology.
Hmm.
He came up to me and said, "You know what? When you were of a certain age, people would ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and you said, I want to become a detective so I can find my parents, and then I want to become a blood scientist." And he was like, and in a way, that's exactly what you did because by the time I graduated college, I had found my birth family and connected with them and I'm so lucky to have had that and like both my dads got along and
Hmm.
would we'd have family functions together and stuff and like not every adopted person gets to do that.
No, no. And that I think illustrates like how special your dad was.
Oh yeah.
Like and how lucky you were to have been, I guess, the chosen one, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I mean, there were a couple times where I could tell he struggled a little bit with, worrying that maybe he would take a back seat, but he never did. And so
Hmm. And that's
it was a
normal.
long time since that ever like bothered him.
I think that's normal. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's a totally normal fear to have is like, because biology is a uh strong factor
oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Well, and especially you invest your pretty much your life into another person,
Yeah.
and you essentially he watched you grow up and guided you along the way. So it's like
Yeah.
to be put in the back burner mentally is certainly a concerning thing. I could
Yeah.
see that.
But I mean, we've had a couple episodes on family, and
Mm-hmm.
so I've mentioned this before, but for anybody who hasn't watched that and you're watching now, I have the opinion that there is no greater love than that of a parent who adopts a child because like you are choosing to love somebody that is not of your own biology as
Yeah,
if they were.
exactly. Well, yeah, because any idiot can like get pregnant and give birth and like or by choice or by accident,
Yeah.
like that can totally happen. But to actually actively seek out another child and take them under your wing, that's really special. It's
Yeah.
a really really special thing. Yeah, man. Hmm.
Yeah. So this beer is for dad.
I'll raise a can for him as well.
Space dust. Wow. I've never seen you drink a space dust.
No, I never do. Just what I happen to have. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And my dad liked to I would like to share beers with my dad every now and then. Uh, Even in these later years when it was probably not a good idea. But like I said, at one point I was like, "Yeah, well, let him enjoy life then. What's
yeah.
left." And so every so often I'd come over with a Rochefort beer, crack a cold one, and watch some TV or something.
Yeah, and that's all we can hope is to like, just maybe not be so concerned. Like, what's more important, a life that's good that you enjoy, or a life that's long? And like this goes into the whole, like, I think we talked about the assisted suicide thing. We did an episode about that,
Yeah.
where people at all costs want to sustain somebody as long as humanly possible. And it's like, well, at what point are they no longer themselves? Like, what, you just want to keep them alive for your own benefit? Let that person live their life the way they see fit, die on their own terms, like a Klingon, like just
Yeah.
like laugh at death as it kills you, like I could see your dad totally doing that. Like that what was that episode where Q gives Picard a second chance to go back and do things again,
Oh yeah.
and the Nausicaan like kills him in the end, and he's like laying there dying, and he's like like laughing. That I could see your dad being like that.
Yeah.
Like, I beat Zelda again.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, when he had his heart attack, I'm pretty sure it was probably in the exact same place that he ended up dying.
Wow. Huh.
So I had that thought earlier today. Like, I bet he was chuckling to himself as he died. Like, here's the
Mm-hmm.
irony. Like, because he told himself like he had to hang on to be there for my mom and stuff. So uh, he kind of rallied and slept it off, which is totally the wrong thing to do. But uh,
Yeah. Well, but humans are
you have a
pretty
heart attack, you should go to the hospital, not to bed.
yes. But humans are pretty tough. So, well,
Yeah.
some are. It is kind of remarkable how fragile people are, but also how like indestructible people are.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the tiniest thing will kill a person, but yet there are people who survive the most insane situation, like with, I got like a one broken bone, even though I just fell out of an airplane at 40,000 feet and bounced off the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
totally
my
insane.
dad lived a life of agony. Like,
Mm.
I've felt so bad for him for decades, and I feel like a huge release now, not worrying about him suffering. You know,
Yeah, I completely understand that.
because oh my god, the list is endless. Like blown discs in his back in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and everything from there just kind of went downhill. Like, he went from being a buff Incredible Hulk to, like, you know having all these health problems, ended up getting type 2 diabetes, had a torn bicep, like uh, constant back problems throughout his life, kidneys failing, like then his heart was failing, then he had a heart attack, he had 2 strokes, like
Jeez.
all kinds of stuff being thrown at him left and right. I've been worrying for the last 11 years that he would die. So, like, he's been he's been taking it like a champ for at least 11 years,
It's a fighter,
probably
basically.
longer. Like,
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man.
long fight. That's perseverance, and that's exactly what it takes to get through hard shit.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
you got to go, you know what? Like, this is going to hurt, but oh well,
Yeah,
what am I
soldier
going to
on,
do? Just
right?
die? Like, give up?
I,
Yeah.
my hope is that I die in some kind of blaze of glory, like in a fighter jet, like being shot down by enemy fighters and or plummeting from space in a huge fireball or a giant nuclear Armageddon or something, Like I don't want to be sitting there in a bed with a bunch of people surrounding me feeling sorry for me like, oh, it's so bad that oh no, I feel so sad. No, I want it to be something to remember. Like go out like a Klingon.
Totally.
And to like for your dad to like basically beat the odds um for so long is pretty incredible. I
Yeah.
think it's a testament to like his toughness.
His dad was the same.
Mm-hmm.
They told him he wouldn't live past 30.
Oh,
He ended up dying at 91, like a
Jesus.
full year after they said he would die because he had this cancer that was like inoperable and stuff. So yeah, like that that was in his blood for sure.
Yeah.
But also like, I mean, it's exactly who he was, like being Mr. Mom in that generation
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s, like
Yeah.
that was, I mean, they made a comedy movie about it with Michael Keaton. Like, oh, how funny is this? A guy like raising a kid.
Yeah.
And my dad was like already doing that.
Like a decade before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Man.
So
Well,
yeah,
apparently, this cat is getting really demanding all of a sudden.
Floyd's telling his story about dad.
Yeah, yeah. Says, well, us cats communicate through scent. So I'm trying to put the scent on the microphone in hopes that you'll hear the story. Well, thank you for
This
that,
one
Floyd.
time, Jerry.
Oh man. Well, I think we've gone on long enough for today.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of stories, but that was a pretty good tribute, I think.
I think so.
Uh,
Well, soon
like
enough.
I wish we could have had him on the show because we've I mean we've had friends that we've lost that have been on the show, and it's really helped people to be able to go back and watch the episode they were in and feel
Yeah,
like they're just having a conversation with them.
exactly. Oh.
Exactly, Floyd.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I uh, wish I could do with Dad. Have an episode with him, but there's
Well,
plenty of memories, so
I
that'll
mean,
have to do.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I'm sure we're going to be doing this more and more as
yeah,
everybody ages.
I'll be here a little while. I got a lot to do. Uh,
I can imagine. Does your dad still have that boat in the backyard that was like buried in shrubs?
yeah, very small sailboat. I was going to ask you about that. You know anyone looking for a small sailboat? It's
I I'll ask around.
yeah, I'm forgetting the name of the guy. Like it was made by like some dude that's like famous in that scene,
Huh.
Paul something or guy. I asked my dad several times, knowing that like this day would come where I'm gonna have to be like, "Hey, this sailboat was like a so and so original," and
Yeah.
I've forgotten the fucker's name.
Oh man.
Maybe it's written on the boat somewhere. I don't know.
Probably. Well, most boats, like larger boats, have some kind of little tag that has like the manufacturer, the manufacturing date, various things like that, the model and whatnot.
Yeah,
So if you dig around, you'll probably find it.
yeah. Maybe it's on the title. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Ugh.
Well, anyway,
Well, for those who are watching, thanks for sticking it out and
Deep sink
give it.
diving into Jerry Rochefort's life.
Yep, like essentially, in a way, an origin point of this very show
Oh, for sure. For sure.
and of the music that
Oh, yeah.
we have.
Which
Well,
is
and
also a huge part of the show, you know. So,
well, and in a sense, his influence influenced me because the music that you created influenced me.
yeah,
So
butterfly effect.
yeah, exactly. I'm yeah, holding back tears there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, like our friend Shane, that is kind of like our third band member. He flew in from Memphis same day I did, so he could be here for me, and because I was there for his dad. You know, really actually close friends with his dad. I would go visit his dad even if he wasn't there. And people would do that with my dad too. Like
Hmm.
people would stop in to see him or go talk to him at
Hmm.
outside Sherry's. Like
Well, yeah, I've been over there quite a few times
yep,
for various reasons, and in later years, going over there to check on things or move the trash cans or something like that.
yep, yeah. Like I don't think everybody really comes to this realization, but like it is possible to be friends with the parents of your friends. They're
Hmm.
not just the parents, like when you're younger, it's a little different, right? But once you start growing up, it's like, well, we're all adults. So like,
Yeah,
you know,
and in a way, they become part of your family.
totally.
I mean, I consider your mom and dad part of my family, like,
Yeah.
and you obviously, like, you're basically like a
Yeah, I guess.
brother to me, you know.
I guess we'll lump Casey in that.
Yeah, just as an afterthought. Oh man.
Yeah.
uh
Well,
well,
yeah, this was very helpful, a cathartic sort of KSM style eulogy
hmm,
slash memorial slash tribute episode.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, if you're still watching with us, raise a glass
or a can.
or a can or
Wait, you didn't have a glass, you had
well,
a bottle.
it is made of glass.
Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, good point.
I mean, that's semantics, I guess, but
Well, wait a minute.
a
Here's a
little pedantic.
philosophical thing. At what point does a bottle become a glass? Like it's the same. It's open on the top. It
Right?
contains a liquid.
Yeah,
It's made of glass. Both are made of glass.
right.
Something to ponder on the way out.
Yes. We'll
So,
do next. We'll do an episode on what's glass and what's a bottle.
yeah, exactly. Oh man. Well,
Well, that's more like season 35 or something. Like,
season
when
35.
we finally have talked about everything in the universe, and we're like, what else can we talk about? Is it a glass or a bottle?
Oh man. Well, okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us in deep sink diving and glass or bottle or can raisin. Um,
And
Casey's dad.
like and share and subscribe, and be sure to check out our next episode coming up. It's on religious thinking.
Yep. And I think we'll probably have something. There will be another version of this one, this episode that has some bonus stuff at the end. So,
It's
all right.
like Klingon knives.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a good point to end there. Okay, good. Oh man, Floyd, you yes, okay. Oh man. Oof. Feel like I had to grab another beer. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good episode.
Yeah, so I was like from Germany making all these phone calls, trying to arrange as much